Are you getting enough vitamin D? And if you're taking supplements or are considering it, how do you make sure you're actually optimizing your vitamin D levels? In this video, I'll share the best sources of vitamin D from powerful foods and supplements so you can boost your health and energy every day, naturally. And if you're new here, I'm Dr. Gayla Gorman, a licensed acupuncturist, naturopath, and author of What's Your Kryptonite? If you'd like to use complementary medicine, you'll need help talking to your doctor. You can get my free guide, How to Talk to Your Doctor So They Listen. Just comment guide or go to drgayla.com/links. On this channel, I'm here to help you reverse the effects of chronic stress so that you can cruise through midlife and beyond symptom-free, so that you can put an end to common midlife symptoms like chronic fatigue, insomnia, mood swings, issues with gut health, and even weight gain. So let's get started by talking about how we get the right amount of vitamin D, because this is crucial for your health, and more isn't always better. There are clear guidelines for how much you actually need, and it's important to be aware of the potential risks of taking too much, especially from supplements. So before you consider increasing your intake, let's look at what you should know about safe and effective vitamin D levels. The recommended dietary allowance, RDA, for most adults is 600 IUs. This is 15 micrograms per day, increasing to about 800 IUs or 20 micrograms daily for those over 70. So I will say that many times we hear practitioners recommending that people take 10,000 IUs of vitamin D. This is simply irresponsible because vitamin D can be toxic to your system. We're going to talk more about this as I continue in this video here. The tolerable upper intake level is supposed to be only 4,000 IUs per day. As I mentioned, many practitioners recommend taking up to 10,000 IUs or more, and so we really need to understand why that is and also what the risks are associated with that. Vitamin D toxicity, typically caused by high doses of supplements rather than food or sunlight, can result in hypercalcemia or high blood calcium. Now, I know this sort of doesn't make sense because we're taking vitamin D and we're going to end up with too much calcium in our blood, but this really is a significant issue and a potential risk, and it leads to symptoms like nausea, vomiting, weakness, frequent urination, kidney stones, even kidney failure. It's rare to reach toxic levels from diet or sun exposure, but anyone considering high-dose supplementation should really carefully consider alternatives. You really want to avoid complications and ensure that you're getting the proper dose and a dose that your body actually can assimilate and use properly. If you can't get your vitamin D levels into the optimal range, if you're doing all the right things, it's an assimilation problem, not a dosing problem. In a 2023 article from BHOF, it emphasized practical strategies for maintaining bone health through a combination of sunlight. This is the best way to get your vitamin D, diet, next best for sure, and supplementation as a last resort. And you want to make sure that all of this is tailored to your individual needs. Vitamin D is essential for bone strength and works hand in hand with calcium. Remember, we mentioned calcium a moment ago, to help the body absorb and use this vital mineral effectively. The body's ability to produce vitamin D from sunlight decreases with age and factors like living in institutions. Hopefully we will not be having to deal with that. But honestly, even just living in a condo with limited natural light can be similar to living in an institution. If you've got limited outdoor activity or use consistent sunscreen, maybe because you are fair-skinned, this can further reduce natural vitamin D synthesis. Vitamin D is naturally present in very few foods, so we have to turn to fortified products like milk. And again, dairy is not something I typically recommend. It's one of the fierce five: dairy, yeast, sugar, alcohol, and gluten. And I find that most people do better avoiding dairy. So you'll need to turn to things like plant-based milks, citrus fruits, orange juice can be recommended, but again, you don't want to overconsume juices because there's a lot of sugar, even natural sugar in these. Oftentimes it's recommended to use fortified cereals, but I do not recommend you counting on getting your nutrients from anything out of a box. So, especially for those people with limited sun exposure or dietary restrictions, it's common to end up with a vitamin D deficiency. Healthy adults may meet their needs through sun and diet, but those with osteoporosis or low bone mass or even risk factors for deficiency may need to monitor their levels to determine if supplementation is necessary and to choose the right type and dose for their situation. I will say that for myself, I tried to supplement with vitamin D and it really did not work for me. It's really challenging for those of us with compromised digestion to assimilate vitamin D properly, and I just have to get it through the sun. If I get enough sun exposure, everything feels better, including my mood. And so if you're one of those people who's been avoiding the sun, I would challenge you to watch more of my videos related to vitamin D and the best way to increase your vitamin D levels naturally. But now that you know how crucial it is to get the right amount of vitamin D and the risks that come with taking too much, let's look at how your daily sun habits and sunscreen can make a real difference in maintaining healthy vitamin D levels while you're maintaining healthy vitamin D levels while still keeping you protected to some degree. Sunlight plays a vital role in helping your body produce vitamin D, but finding the right balance between getting enough sun and protecting your skin can be tricky if you can't control how much time you're out in the sun or potentially when your sun exposure happens. This is where you get into kind of a catch-22. Several factors influence how much vitamin D you can make from sun exposure, and your daily habits may have more impact than you realize. So your body can only produce so much vitamin D from your sun exposure. Burning your skin is not going to increase your vitamin D naturally. And so what you want to do is you want to get small doses essentially of sun directly on your skin. Particularly the morning sun is best, and you want to do this consistently. We'll talk more about this as we go through this, but it's just really important to start thinking, how are you going to get your daily dose of vitamin D through sun exposure and exposing enough skin where it's actually going to allow your body to absorb and create that reaction that happens from this sun exposure. So let's just talk for a minute about how sun exposure and sunscreen use really fit into this bigger picture of maintaining healthy vitamin D levels. So moderate, regular sun exposure, and I consider this to be 10 to 30 minutes for lighter skin and 20 to 90 minutes for darker skin types on exposed areas like arms, legs, face, anything really that is naturally exposed without getting you arrested, several times a week can help maintain adequate vitamin D levels. But it's crucial to avoid sunburn to reduce skin cancer risk and honestly just skin damage overall. Sunscreen reduces the UVB penetration, so once you put sunscreen on your body, not only are you really limiting the amount of vitamin D production you're going to get from that, but you're also introducing a lot of chemicals into your bloodstream. Your skin is your largest organ, and it is a barrier, but things do soak through the skin, especially when you put enough on that's actually going to make a difference to block the sun. So again, the sunscreen reduces the ultraviolet rays, and the reduction in the penetration decreases the vitamin D production. And as I mentioned, sunscreen typically contains toxic chemicals that are absorbed into the bloodstream. So if you have to use sunscreen, chemical-free sunscreen should only be used when extended sun exposure is expected to get the optimal benefit from the limited sun exposure that most people get. Factors like time of day, latitude, season, skin pigmentation, and age also affect vitamin D production from sunlight. So dietary sources or supplements may be necessary to maintain healthy vitamin D levels, but you are going to have to make sure you get your blood levels checked regularly so that you can monitor it. Now that you understand how sun exposure and sunscreen habits affect your vitamin D levels, I'm going to share some risks that you'll want to avoid that could put your body under additional stress. Vitamin deficiency is one of the countless ways stress creates symptoms and other health issues, especially during midlife. I created a video that shows you how to eliminate symptoms naturally, so I'll make sure to link to it below this video. But make sure you hit subscribe too, because I share a lot of tips when it comes to dealing with stress that's become toxic. Relieving the nasty symptoms stress creates makes cruising through midlife a breeze. And remember, you can get my free guide, Talk to Your Doctor So They Listen. Just comment guide or go to drgala.com/links. So now let's move on to some of the most effective dietary strategies for increasing your vitamin D levels, because knowing which foods and uncommon sources to include can make all the difference, especially if you're not getting enough sun exposure and you're not getting vitamin D from sun exposure on your skin. Foods are a primary source of vitamin D, but only a few foods naturally contain significant amounts, and some uncommon sources can help fill some of your dietary gaps. Understanding both common and less typical options is essential for those trying to boost their vitamin D levels naturally. Remember, if you are having limited sun exposure for any reason, then it's really important to look at these dietary considerations to see if you can bridge the gap. Fatty fish like salmon, trout, sardines, mackerel, herring are among the richest natural sources of vitamin D. I will say that I'm not going to eat any of these fish on a regular basis, so thank goodness I am working hard to make sure I get enough sun exposure. If you do enjoy trout, a 3-ounce serving of rainbow trout has 645 IUs, and salmon offers between around 400 and 600 IUs per serving. So as I mentioned, unfortunately for me, fatty fish is not my preference, so it's easier to get some vitamin D from other sources, which include egg yolks. I do like eggs, and certain mushrooms. So make sure that if you are one of those people who was taught to avoid the egg yolks because of the additional fat content, you're not doing yourself any favors. You need the egg yolks. They are very nutrient dense. So there are notable non-fish sources like the mushrooms and the eggs that really can bridge that gap. UV exposed mushrooms, meaning mushrooms that were exposed to the light, can contain up to 1,100 IUs per cup. So fortified foods are recommended. This includes cow's milk, but this is one of the foods I recommend that most women avoid. It's one of the fierce 5. Plant-based milk, soy, almond, rice are okay. Orange juice in moderation, because there's really high sugar content in orange juice. And yogurt, which is also a dairy food, but I personally like to use oat milk yogurt, and so that's an alternative that might also get you some of these benefits. They recommend breakfast cereals, but I do not recommend anything that comes in a box. So you just have to know that if you really just follow the guidelines blindly, they may create more issues than they solve. Sure, you'll get some vitamin D, but you're going to add a whole lot of additional toxicity. In a 2024 article from Medline Plus, it really highlighted that vitamin D deficiency occurs when the body lacks sufficient vitamin D to maintain bone health, immune function, and muscle strength, often due to inadequate dietary intake, limited sun exposure, or underlying health conditions affecting absorption. It poses significant risks for bone-related diseases and can impact overall well-being, particularly if you are in a high-risk group. Deficiency can stem from poor diet, we've talked about this, but more importantly from malabsorption disorders. These are typically bowel diseases like Crohn's disease or celiac disease. Obesity can also create issues here. And then, as we've mentioned, and first line of defense is to really deal with sunlight exposure and not to limit your sunlight exposure. One of the things that people often miss is that medications may really interfere with vitamin D metabolism. And so all of these are potential issues affecting your potential for assimilating vitamin D, whether you're taking it orally, getting it through food, or coming in through the sun. Coming in through your skin via the sun is the way typically that you'll have the least amount of issues metabolizing vitamin D. Older adults or people with darker skin, and again, those with some chronic diseases, even kidney and liver disease, are really disproportionately affected. Severe deficiency leads to osteoporosis, fractures, and osteomalacia, which is softened bones in adults, or rickets, which are bone deformities in children. This is less common. A chronic deficiency may also weaken immune and muscle function. So just to summarize here, vitamin D can be sourced and is best sourced from sunlight, then fatty fish, fortified foods, or last resort supplements. Excessive supplementation risks accumulated toxicity, causing hypercalcemia and kidney damage, underscoring that the safest way to get your vitamin D, as I have been pointing out repeatedly throughout this video, is from the sun. And if your best efforts to live a healthy lifestyle and do all the things you've been led to think are supposed to work aren't getting the job done, you may even be feeling like you take 2 steps forward and 3 back. Remember, you can get my free guide, Talk to Your Doctor So They Listen. Just comment guide or go to drgala.com/links. And in my next video, I'll show you how to manage the toxic stress that's sabotaging your efforts. You can eliminate the symptoms that seem to be piling up in midlife naturally, without medication, crazy diets, intense exercise, or any other unsustainable lifestyle hack.